The snow fell softly that December evening, blanketing the small town of Millbrook in a peaceful quiet. Inside the elementary school gymnasium, the sounds of children's laughter echoed through the halls as families gathered for the annual winter festival. Robert Mitchell pushed his janitor's cart down the hallway, his weathered hands gripping the handle with familiar ease. At 52, he had learned to find dignity in honest work. The midnight shift at Millbrook Elementary paid the bills and allowed him to be home when his 8-year-old daughter Emma returned from school each day. Emma was everything to Robert. Her mother had passed when she was just 3, leaving Robert to navigate parenthood alone. He had traded his dreams of coaching basketball for the steady income of custodial work, never once regretting the choice. Emma's bright smile and curious mind made every sacrifice worthwhile. As Robert cleaned the gymnasium, he could hear Coach Harrison's booming voice echoing from the basketball court next door. Tyler Harrison was everything Robert had once aspired to be: confident, successful, respected. The 35-year-old coach had led the high school team to 3 state championships and carried himself with the swagger that came with local fame. "These kids today don't understand what real dedication looks like," Coach Harrison announced loudly to a group of parents. "Back in my playing days, we knew what it meant to work for something. Not like these participation trophy generations." Robert continued his work quietly, accustomed to being invisible. The festival was winding down, and soon he could finish his duties and head home to Emma, who was staying with their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. That's when he heard the commotion. "Hey, you there!" Coach Harrison called out. "Janitor!" Robert looked up to see the coach striding toward him, several parents trailing behind with curious expressions. "I've got a challenge for you," the coach said, his voice carrying that familiar edge of arrogance. "I hear you used to play some ball back in the day. How about we settle something right here, right now, one-on-one? Let's see if you've still got anything left," the group of parents murmured among themselves. Robert felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment. He hadn't touched a basketball in years, not since Emma was born, and life had demanded different priorities. "Coach Harrison, I appreciate the offer, but I should really finish my work," Robert replied quietly, hoping to diffuse the situation. "Come on, don't be modest," the coach pressed, his tone growing more condescending. "Unless you're afraid to show these folks what a real player looks like versus someone who just cleans up after real players." The words stung, but Robert had learned long ago to swallow his pride. He was about to decline again when he heard a small voice from the gymnasium doorway. "Daddy?" Emma stood there in her red winter coat and knitted gray hat, holding her favorite stuffed bear. Mrs. Chen had brought her to meet Robert after his shift, as they did every evening. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, her young eyes taking in the scene with the wisdom that comes to children who grow up quickly. Coach Harrison's expression softened slightly at the sight of the little girl, but his competitive nature quickly reasserted itself. "Well, well. Looks like we have an audience now. What do you say, sport?" he asked Emma. "Want to see your old man show us what he's made of?" Emma looked at her father with complete faith. "Daddy's really good at basketball," she said simply. "He taught me how to shoot free throws in our driveway." Robert felt his heart swell with love and dread in equal measure. He couldn't embarrass Emma, but he also knew he was no match for a man 20 years younger who coached basketball for a living. "All right," Robert said quietly. "One game, 1st to 15. The small crowd that had gathered fell silent as Robert removed his work shirt, revealing a simple white t-shirt underneath. His movements were careful, deliberate, as he picked up the basketball Coach Harrison tossed his way. What happened next surprised everyone, including Robert himself. The muscle memory was still there. The countless hours he'd spent on courts just like this one in his youth came flooding back. His first shot swished through the net with a soft whisper, then another and another. Coach Harrison's confident smirk began to fade as Robert moved with a grace that belied his years and station. The janitor, who had seemed invisible just moments before, now commanded the court with quiet authority. The score climbed, steadily. Robert 7, Coach Harrison 3, then 10-5. The crowd watched in growing amazement as the older man's shots found their mark with consistent precision. But something else was happening too. With each basket, Robert felt a part of himself awakening that had been dormant for years. Not just his athletic ability, but his confidence, his sense of self-worth. When the final shot fell through the net, Robert 15, Coach Harrison 12, the gymnasium erupted in applause. Emma ran onto the court and hugged her father's legs, her face beaming with pride. "Daddy, that was amazing," she exclaimed. Coach Harrison stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. The arrogance was gone from his face, replaced by something unexpected: respect. "Where did you play?" he asked quietly. "State University," Robert replied, helping Emma onto his shoulders. "Scholarship player for 4 years. Made it to the NIT tournament my senior year. What happened? Why aren't you coaching?" Robert's answer was simple and profound. Life happened. Priorities changed. My daughter needed me to be present, not chasing dreams that couldn't pay the bills or tuck her in at night. The crowd began to disperse, but Coach Harrison lingered. "Listen," he said, his voice stripped of its earlier bravado. "I was out of line earlier. I misjudged you." Robert nodded gracefully. "We all make assumptions sometimes. The important thing is what we do when we realize we're wrong." As they walked toward the exit, Emma, chattering excitedly about her father's performance, Coach Harrison called out one more time. "Robert, the high school could use an assistant coach, part-time evenings, if you're interested." Robert smiled, feeling Emma's small hand squeeze his. "Let me think about it," he said. "I'll need to make sure it works, with my daughter's schedule first." Outside in the gentle snowfall, Emma looked up at her father with shining eyes. "I'm proud of you, Daddy, not because you won, but because you were kind to that man even when he wasn't kind to you." In that moment, Robert realized that the greatest victory of the evening wasn't the basketball game. It was the lesson his daughter had witnessed about dignity, grace under pressure, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing your true worth doesn't depend on others' recognition of it. The snow continued to fall as father and daughter made their way home. Their footprints side by side in the pristine white blanket, a perfect metaphor for the journey they shared. One of love, resilience, and the understanding that the most important victories in life often happen when no one is keeping score. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can give others is the chance to see beyond their assumptions and discover the extraordinary in the seemingly ordinary. And sometimes we need others to remind us of the champions we've always been, even when we've forgotten it ourselves.